here's my Ego electric non-self-propelled lawnmower. Alright, so this is it, fully extended. We've got the battery sitting on top. This is a 56 volt. I've used it I've probably charged the battery about 15 times. And I can say overall it's been a really good unit. They claim 55 minutes of runtime. I can tell you that's pretty much accurate. It's super dependent on how tall the grass is, if it's wet, things like that. A ton of people have done videos on, how long these last. This is not really what this is about. This is just about what I think about going to an electric lawnmower coming from a gas. And I went with this because of its cost. This was $3.99 with the battery. And I really wanted to make this because there's not a lot of videos on this particular model. This one is the non-self-propelled, so I'm pushing it the whole time. So you might think that if you get the non-self-propelled unit, you get more runtime. That's not the case, because what Ego does is, for the self-propelled model, you get a 7.5 amp hour battery, and with this model, the one where you're pushing it the whole time, you get a 5 amp hour. So you're both units are going to get about that 55-minute runtime. The cost is going to be a little bit more. For the self-propelled model, it's about $100 more. So like I said, this one's $3.99, so the self-propelled model is about $4.99. So this is the battery, and it's pretty heavy. It's probably about 5-6 pounds, and it's pretty simple design. Pop this cover open, battery goes in, snaps into place. Right here is an indicator bar. Tells you how much battery you've got left. So just to show how that works, this is going to be kind of tough to do with one hand. So this has a safety feature where you've got to push this button down, and you can see the battery lit up. And then you pull the bar right here. So I'm going to try to do that. I think I'm going to go here. Start. Now you can let off the button. Keep that handle down. Release. One thing that's kind of a myth is that these are silent. They are certainly not. They're certainly quieter than the gas variants, but anybody that says that they're, in a neighborhood and they're mowing their yard at 1 in the morning, it's definitely not silent. That's probably my biggest takeaway from this, is that it's quiet. It's quieter than gas, no question about it. You do not have to have, ear protection on, but it's certainly not silent. This model also has, and I think all of them do, is if you hit a rock or something, the blade feels resistance, it'll just shut right off to protect both the blade and the motor. So that's a pretty nice feature. I try to avoid that, but sometimes it's just, especially where I live, there's a lot of rocks. The deck is pretty easy to manipulate. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've seen reviews of people saying, I don't know anybody that would do 1. I leave it at 1 pretty much, unless I'm going to do like something pretty tall, like over here. But mine's at 1, but it's pretty easy to just move up to 2, back down to 1. I stay under 3. Level 6, you're leaving quite a bit of grass there. So the biggest question people have with these is, if I have 3 acres, is this going to be too much? And I'd say that's probably where I would probably draw the line, especially with this model. I measured it on Google Earth. It's about a full acre, give or take, because I've got like our chicken coop over there. I've got a couple of raised beds. But I can do this if I'm really going quickly. I can do this in 2 full charges, but typically it takes me a little bit more than that. It's probably just a little bit more than 2 full charges. I also don't run the battery down to 0. It's got all those green lights as we saw, but then it'll go yellow on the last one, and then it'll go red. And I've noticed that even after it goes yellow, you still have about 10 minutes of runtime, so you're not fully done, but you're pretty close. So that's about the cut you're gonna get with the level 1. This grass isn't super tall, but it does give you an idea. Here's one con about this mower. This is as close as I can get to this wall, and that blade is still probably 6 inches away from the front. Now on the sides, it gets really close. So if I flip the mower around, which I'll do in a second, you'll see you can get really close on the sides, but in the front you can't. So as we're mowing here, this is one thing that I think is probably going to break on this mower before the warranty period's out. The front axles, I don't even know if you'd call them that. They're just a little piece of, they're metal. But if you watch as I mow, and I'm obviously going pretty fast and I'm not on perfectly level ground. So if you have a level yard, you probably don't have to worry about this, but as you watch me go around, you can see that those wheels they wobble, and I just don't know if they're gonna last. That's probably the biggest gripe I'm gonna have on this mower. So now I'm gonna mow that, which is probably, I don't know, 2.5, 3 feet tall. I'm gonna put this up on setting number 3 and listen to the change in mower as I go in there. You'll be able to hear the quote-unquote turbo mode kick on. So you can see that that did a decent enough job. I'd probably hit this again, but this hasn't been mowed for 3 months or so. Also, you'll see that I just did all of this area and this, and the battery only went down 1 bar. So you can take it through, you know, some pretty thick stuff, and the grass is wet. I should note that too. It's pretty early in the morning and it's humid as all get out, but you know, you can kind of tell this thing doesn't struggle, at least in, you know, its first year, to take down some pretty thick stuff. Just to look at the underside, you can see I've hit some stuff with this, but it's still pretty good shape. I haven't had too much of an issue with clogging. A little bit of grass there, but not too bad. It's never been a real issue. This is kind of what I was talking about with this little axle system. It looks like you could just buy that whole part, so even if that has a problem, I guess I could replace that pretty easily. These wheels are also just plastic. I don't think the wheels are going to have any problems. I think it's just the it's stiff, right? There's no, you know, it's a lawnmower, so it doesn't necessarily need suspension, but there's nothing there to absorb, you know, any type of difference in, you know, change in elevation. So this is what I used to have. This is what I used to use for this property. This is, like I said, it's a 1997. I fixed it up. It's actually the one I grew up with. It's just getting to the point where some parts are just astronomically expensive. It needs a new muffler, and it's that part per Toro is like $1,300 if I wanted to order it, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's unfortunate because it's actually a really heavy duty lawnmower, but I can't justify it. That's kind of the last thing I want to talk about, right? When I was looking for lawnmowers, you know, you can buy the Craftsman and the Husqvarna and a whole bunch of these other riders that are all pretty much the same, and everybody says the same, that they're garbage, and maybe they are. I don't know. I've never had one. They're certainly not that. That's been basically error-free since 1997. Haven't really had to do too much to it, other than a fuel pump and changing the oil, and that's pretty much it. But that's kind of what led me to buying this. I was getting ready to spend about $2,500 on one of the lawnmowers, and I just couldn't really justify it when this was here for $400, because even if I'm wrong, I'm only out $400, and I know I can sell this thing for pretty cheap. So yep, it takes me a little bit longer to mow my whole yard, but at the same time, you know, I'm not spending money on gas. I'm not spending money on changing oil. There's no spark plugs. It's just simple plug and play. We didn't talk about it, but the battery takes about an hour to charge, and it does. It's pretty loud. It's about as loud as the lawnmower itself when the battery's charging, if that is of any concern to you. But yeah, I give it a 10. I don't have any complaints. All right, I'm gonna finish the yard. I'm not gonna film it. It's boring, I'm sure. This is really just a review for you all that are, you know, thinking about getting this version versus the self-propelled, and why you might get this version versus the self-propelled. Like I said, $399 is what I got it for at Lowe's. I think you'll like it, especially if it's your first battery powered piece of equipment. Like I've been saying to people, they need to apply this to cars, right? When you're doing a cost analysis for buying a car right now in 2024, for the vast majority of people, it makes no sense to buy a battery powered car as far as cost is concerned. Now, you could have, you know, your opinion on if you're going green or whatever. For me, it's strictly cost, and I can't justify a battery powered car right now, but I could justify a battery powered lawnmower. So I'll also mention this: I am certainly not sponsored by Ego. I'm just a guy making a review. I did compare Ego to Echo has battery powered equipment, and I have an Echo chainsaw. I really like my chainsaw. I compared them to Steel. I basically stayed away from Cobalt, heard bad things about them, so I stayed away from them. There's a guy that did a review on a bunch of these different push mowers, battery powered, and that was a really good synopsis of you know, why this one, I think this one came in second to the Makita, if memory serves me right. But the cost of the Makita was almost 3 times as much as this. So yeah, like I said, I think I got the best mower I could for the cost, and that's really what it came down to. I do intend to get the weed whacker for the Ego weed whacker, because I got the battery. So maybe I'll do a review once I get that, but I don't have any intention to. Like I said, as close as I can get on the side to the trees, I don't even really need a weed whacker. So let's go finish mowing the lawn.